Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we bring you breaking news from Eastern Europe, a development that has already sent shockwaves through the region and beyond, capturing headlines across the world and raising the stakes in a conflict that has been raging for more than 2 years. Reports are coming in that Ukraine has launched a daring and unprecedented strike deep inside Russia, targeting the heart of Moscow itself, specifically the Moscow city towers, a gleaming symbol of Russia's financial and corporate strength. This is not just another battlefield report from the Donbas or Kherson, or the contested regions along the front lines. This is an assault that hits at the very core of Russian political and economic prestige, right in the capital, and it represents one of the boldest actions of the war so far. For an American audience, this moment is a reminder of how rapidly escalating technology, drone warfare, and modern tactics can transform not only military battlefields, but also civilian cityscapes that were once thought to be untouchable. According to early information, Ukrainian drones managed to breach Russian air defenses and strike high-rise buildings within Moscow's financial district. The Moscow city towers, a cluster of skyscrapers known for housing multinational corporations, banks, and even government offices, were shaken by powerful blasts that lit up the skyline overnight. Russian state media at first attempted to downplay the incident, claiming limited damage and no casualties, but independent videos uploaded to Telegram channels and shared across social media tell a different story. Flames could be seen bursting from the upper floors of a high-rise building, glass raining down onto the streets, and sirens wailing across central Moscow. Shocked residents and office workers recorded the explosions, and the sound of drones buzzing overhead echoed through the urban landscape. This is the kind of attack that Russian authorities have long feared, but have consistently claimed would never happen. For months, Russia's leadership projected confidence, insisting that its air defense systems around Moscow, including the S-400 missile batteries and electronic jamming systems, were more than capable of repelling Ukrainian drones. Yet tonight's attack shows a glaring vulnerability. It shows that Ukraine, once written off as a nation on the defensive, has developed the capability and the will to take the fight far beyond its own borders and directly into the Russian capital. For Americans watching, this is comparable to the unthinkable idea of an enemy strike on Wall Street in New York or the financial district in downtown Chicago. It's not just a military strike, it's a psychological one, sending a message that nowhere is safe, not even Moscow's most iconic towers. The symbolism of this strike cannot be overstated. The Moscow city complex is more than just a group of modern skyscrapers. It has long been presented as a symbol of Russia's modernization and its ambition to stand shoulder to shoulder with global powers. Western corporations once rented prime office space there, global banks set up operations, and Russian oligarchs used the towers to showcase wealth. In recent years, even government ministries have shifted operations to these buildings, making them not only economic centers but also political targets. For Ukraine to hit such a high-profile site is to demonstrate reach, audacity, and technological advancement. It sends a powerful signal to both Russia and the world. Ukraine is not merely defending itself at the front lines, it is capable of striking the very heart of the aggressor. From a performance standpoint, what Ukraine pulled off here is remarkable. Military analysts are already dissecting how drones could evade Russia's dense air defense network surrounding Moscow. Some speculate that Ukraine may have deployed swarms of drones, overwhelming Russian radar systems and missile defenses. Others believe these could have been long-range drones custom, built for this mission, flying at low altitudes to avoid detection until the last moment. The precision of the strike suggests careful planning, reconnaissance, and possibly even inside knowledge of Moscow's defense blind spots. If confirmed, this would mark a new phase of warfare where cheap, expendable drones can defeat billion-dollar defense systems, a lesson the Pentagon and NATO are undoubtedly studying very closely tonight. As for safety features, Moscow's emergency response teams rushed to contain fires and evacuate residents, but the incident highlights Russia's unpreparedness for attacks on its own soil. While Russia has fortified bunkers, missile defenses, and secured its military bases, civilian skyscrapers are another story. The Moscow city towers were not built for wartime resilience. They were designed for luxury offices and high-end apartments. This means that while the Russian state has invested heavily in offensive operations abroad, it has left its own civilian infrastructure exposed. For Americans, the lesson is stark. Modern warfare no longer respects traditional frontlines, and iconic skylines can quickly become battle zones when an adversary decides to strike symbolically. Now, let's look at the unique selling points of what this attack represents in the broader conflict. Ukraine has successfully shifted the narrative. Until now, the Russian government has tried to paint Ukraine as perpetually on the defensive, a country scrambling to survive against superior Russian might. But with each bold drone strike inside Russia, at oil depots, air bases, and now central Moscow, Ukraine is proving that it can take the initiative, that it can force Russia onto the defensive, not just on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of Russian citizens. This attack erodes the Kremlin's aura of control. It raises questions among ordinary Russians about the competence of their leaders and the true vulnerability of their cities. For Ukraine, this is not merely about destruction. It's about reshaping perceptions, showing its allies in the West that support is paying off, and reminding Moscow that the costs of invasion will be felt not just in the trenches of Donetsk, but in the very skyline of the capital. The price, however, is difficult to calculate in terms of both material damage and political fallout. Economically, the attack could spook investors, rattle Russian markets, and further isolate the country. Already, international sanctions have crippled Russia's economy, and now images of burning skyscrapers in Moscow could accelerate capital flight, discourage foreign engagement, and undermine Russia's claim to stability. Politically, this is a nightmare for Vladimir Putin. He has built his image on the promise of a strong, secure Russia, projecting an image of invulnerability, but tonight that image has been shattered. Russian citizens are asking how drones could reach the very core of the capital. Kremlin spokespersons are scrambling to control the narrative, insisting that everything is under control, but the reality is plain for all to see. Ukraine has struck Moscow's heart, and no amount of propaganda can erase that image. For Americans watching from across the Atlantic, there are several implications. First, this demonstrates the importance of continued support for Ukraine. Far from being a lost cause, Ukraine is adapting, innovating, and proving capable of dramatic, high-impact actions that can alter the course of the war. Second, it reveals the vulnerabilities of modern states, even ones as heavily militarized as Russia. If drones can strike Moscow, then no city is truly beyond reach in the age of cheap, accessible drone technology. The Pentagon and U.S. policymakers will be analyzing this event carefully, considering how such tactics could be applied in other global flashpoints, whether in the Middle East, Asia, or beyond. Finally, this moment reinforces why the conflict in Ukraine matters for global security. It is not a distant regional war, it is a test case for the future of modern warfare, one that will shape doctrines, defenses, and alliances for decades to come. As dawn breaks over Moscow, the cleanup begins. Fire crews douse smoldering ruins, police cordon off streets, and shattered glass is swept from sidewalks. Office workers who once commuted to the gleaming towers now face the sobering reality that their workplace has become a target in a war they may have thought was distant. Across Ukraine, the mood is different. Social media buzzes with celebration, memes, and patriotic pride, with citizens sharing the news that their country has struck back in a way that few imagined possible just 2 years ago when Russia first launched its invasion. In Kiev, officials remain cautious, neither confirming nor denying responsibility, but their silence speaks volumes. The attack aligns perfectly with Ukraine's recent strategy of extending the battlefield into Russian territory. For Ukrainians, this is justice, a reminder that they can respond to the devastation inflicted on their own cities by showing Russia that war cuts both ways. Internationally, reactions are mixed. Western leaders, including officials in Washington, tread carefully, avoiding direct endorsement of strikes deep inside Russia, but also reaffirming Ukraine's right to self-defense. NATO allies recognize the strategic brilliance but worry about escalation. Meanwhile, Russia's allies from Iran to China watch closely, concerned about the Kremlin's inability to protect its own capital. If Russia cannot secure Moscow, what does that say about its global posture? And what does it mean for the balance of power in this war? These are questions reverberating not only in military circles, but also in diplomatic halls around the world. Ultimately, the conclusion tonight is that the war has entered a new phase. No longer confined to trench warfare, artillery duels, and grinding battles in the east, it is now reaching symbolic centers of power. Ukraine has shown that it can disrupt Russia not only on the battlefield, but also in the very skyline of its capital. For Russia, this is a humiliating setback, a reminder that its aura of invincibility is crumbling. For Ukraine, it is a triumph of ingenuity, daring, and persistence. And for the world, especially for Americans watching, it is a glimpse into the future of warfare, where drones, symbols, and psychological impact are just as powerful as tanks and missiles. This story is still developing, and we will continue to bring you updates as more information comes in. But tonight, the image is seared into history. Ukraine's strike on Moscow city towers, a moment when the war came to Russia's heart. Stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, thank you for watching.